Uh-oh. Motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would appear that the United Kingdom's own up-and-comer in the super flyweight division, Shannon Ryan, will be making her next ring appearance on the undercard of Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen 2, May 17th at the Copper Box Arena in London. Against an opponent that is yet to be announced. Shannon Ryan sports a professional record of 8 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 1 recorded knockout, having never been knocked out in 9 professional bouts in what will be her 2nd consecutive fight since her first loss to Emma Doolin. Dropped that decision to Emma Doolin in June of last year, then rebounded off the loss in December against Kate Radomska, who she stopped in 3 rounds. Even though Shannon doesn't have a lot of recorded knockouts, she can punch. If you've seen her in action, you'll know she's a respectable puncher, a decent-sized puncher, albeit not a knockout merchant. On the more compact end of the spectrum, as far as super flyweights go, Shannon doesn't have a lot of height and a lot of length, but she does have a lot of athleticism, speed, and power. And with only 9 professional fights so far, there's a lot more work needs doing before she is so ready to challenge for an alphabet title in a super flyweight division that's one of the deeper divisions in all of women's boxing. The question is, how far out is Shannon from fighting for an alphabet title? Her name does not appear in the WBA's rank standings or the WBO's, but it does appear in the WBC's at number 8. She's ranked number 8 with the WBC and number 7 with the IBF. So by that reckoning, I'd say Shannon has 2 to 3 more fights before she challenges for an alphabet title. Anywhere inside of 2 to 3 more fights. And unless belts change hands and the landscape changes within the next 12 months, that essentially means she's gunning for a fight with either Mexico's own Ashley Gonzalez or Mexico's own Irma Garcia. These are veterans, the both of them. Experienced fighters with a lot more experience than young Shannon has right now. Hard to say that either of them are low-hanging fruit for a fighter that only has 9 professional bouts. I would say that Shannon actually stands a better chance of beating Jasmine Artiga than either of them. Jasmine doesn't have much more experience than Shannon does, and being honest, she was lucky. Very lucky to get the decision in her last fight. That being said, a fight with either Ashley Gonzalez or Irma Garcia, it's not a foregone conclusion that Shannon Ryan wins those fights. To become a champion, she's going to have to go through some good fighters. There are no vacant titles lying around. No world titles of opportunity. And that's the way it is. We don't yet know who Shannon Ryan is fighting, but what we do know is that she's a ways out from fighting for an alphabet title, and it's not going to be easy. She's going to have to beat somebody good. Look for the ring return of Shannon Ryan next month on the undercard of Fisher versus Allen 2. Elsewhere in the world of boxing and men's heavyweight news, Richard Torrez Jr. steps up for heavyweight acid test against Guido
Vianello.
Between 1960 and 1998, the United States retained the lineal heavyweight title for 38 years, with stars such as Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson becoming global superstars that transcended the sport. Yet the heavyweight landscape across the pond is a barren one at present, having not held the lineal title since 2001 and boasting a world champion for just 2 months of this current decade. With few American heavyweights competing at the world level, Richard Torrez Jr., 12-0 with 11 KOs, has now taken it upon himself to step up the quality of his opposition. Torrez will seek to prove that he is the man for his countrymen to get behind. Accepting a tough challenge against Guido Vianello, 13-2 with 1 draw and 11 knockouts, that headlines in Vegas this weekend, a Golden Gloves winner, 2-time national champion, and Olympic silver medalist at Tokyo in 2020, 25-year-old Torrez now sticks out as the obvious candidate for potential heavyweight success, but his professional career has yet to take off. Despite 12 wins and an impressive record of stoppages, Torrez has faced much criticism for opponent selection, and the Californian southpaw has yet to take part in a truly competitive fight.
Who's criticizing Richard? I mean, who do they expect him to fight at 12-0? I'd say that things don't start to get serious, or they shouldn't, until about maybe 15-0 and 20-0. That's when you want to see a guy step up in class. Myself, I take no issue with who Richard has been fighting,
even if some people do. Now, the gentleman boxer seeks to silence his doubters by making the monumental jump to take on Vianello, who is ranked in the top 15 with 3 of the 4 sanctioned bodies. The Italian is fresh from a career-best knockout win over Russian knockout merchant Arslanbek Makhmudov back in August. Adding to the challenge is the fact that Torrez has fought beyond 5 rounds just once in his career, meaning his unproven gas tank could be put to the test in a first scheduled 10-rounder. This bout also happens to be against an opponent who comfortably represents his most difficult test to date. Meanwhile, Vianello has gone to round 7 and beyond in 5 of his last 6 fights and has proven to be competitive in the latter stages, having stopped Makhmudov in round 8. That being said, the amateur pedigree of Torrez makes him the favorite on Saturday. The curly-haired concussion causer could thrust himself into the mix against more recognizable contenders to casual fans across the pond. More importantly, he could become the household name heavyweight that is so desperately needed stateside.
America does not produce top-shelf, top-level heavyweights anywhere near as abundantly as they used to. And that's been evident for the last 25, 30 years.
Just about. America has only produced 2 heavyweight champions in the last 2 or 3 decades. Deontay Wilder, who did reign for quite a bit, and Charles Martin, who reigned as heavyweight champion for all of 15 seconds.
It is true that America has fallen behind, and many of the top-shelf, top-level heavyweights are split between the United Kingdom and other parts of Europe.
So where is the American big man? What happened to him? And the theory is that the American big man, the big guy, the heavyweight, is playing other sports, perhaps being a linebacker in the NFL.
Playing in the NBA.
There was some hope that Jared Anderson would be the one to bring big-time heavyweight boxing back to America, but we see what happened to him at the hands of Martin Bakole, and even before that, there was instability there. A young man spiraling out of control. Needless to say that people don't think Jared Anderson's going to be the great American heavyweight anymore. Enter Richard Torrez.
Stands in at a very modest 6'2". 6'2" used to be big for a heavyweight in previous eras, but in this one,
it's not big at all. Once you start approaching that upper echelon of heavyweights, the top 15 and the top 10, you're talking about guys who range in size anywhere in between 6'4" to 6'8". The heavyweights are a lot bigger in this era than they used to be.
Maybe before you could have found 1 or 2 guys floating around that had that kind of height and length, but it wasn't the norm, whereas now it is.
Richard stands in at about 6'2" to Guido, who's 6'6".
And they didn't mention it, but Guido has a decent amateur background of his own. Decent.
It's his professional experiences that make him a formidable adversary for Richard Torrez. He's been in there with better guys than Richard has. Johnny Rice, Efe Ajagba, Arslanbek Makhmudov.
These are experienced fighters.
In tandem with his height advantage and reach advantage over Richard, he also knows how to make himself a moving target, move and punch.
There's no inactivity there to capitalize on. Guido's been active. He fought 3 times last year.
Last in action in August when he stopped Arslanbek Makhmudov, whereas Richard saw action more recently in December when he took out Isaac Gutierrez by way of a 3rd-round knockout.
Richard does seem to be a very strong puncher within close quarters, but that power, it's almost a gift and a curse, because while in boxing, you don't get paid by the hour.
You don't get more money based on there being more rounds in the fight. At the same time, those are experiences that you don't get to have, adversity that you don't get to face, and those learning experiences when you kill them all quick.
Look at what happened to Edgar Berlanga. He started off his career with 16 consecutive knockouts, all in the first half of the fight.
And it was all good up until he was confronted with a guy that he couldn't knock out so fast, and he was tantamount to a deer in the headlights. Those early knockouts, they're a gift and a curse. They may lend themselves to a fighter's appeal and marketability,
but it comes at the expense of experience. So when you look over at Richard Torrez and how quickly he gets rid of these guys, you wonder, how's he gonna look?
Is his engine going to hold up? Because Guido Vianello is a better fighter than any fighter he's fought so far. To go with Richard to win this fight, you must be taking it on faith.
You would have to be.
Seeing Richard in action, he harkens back to a time when the heavyweights were more compact. Think Mike Tyson.
Because Mike was small for his era. A lot of the guys were taller than he was.
And like Mike Tyson, Richard Torrez is best described as a mid-range to inside pressure guy. Because of his stature, because of his build, he has to be. He's like a cannonball in there.
Barreling forward, bending at the waist and knees, chin tucked, fighting at a slight crouch, looking to bring big looping punches over, looping shots.
Looping punches over the top.
He's a southpaw, so that helps to make him a bit tricky.
Orthodox fighters are more accustomed to dealing with other orthodox fighters, so a lot of the time when they're in there with a southpaw, it throws them off. The angle of attack, and Richard Torrez is a southpaw.
The question is, can Richard Torrez close the distance safely, get inside on Guido, and get him out of there?
Can he overpower him? Because a much bigger man in Arslanbek Makhmudov could not. Can Richard Torrez succeed where Makhmudov failed?
I think he can.
I think he will. I'm going to be ballsy with this prediction, and I'm going to go with Richard Torrez by way of knockout on the premise that a short, stocky fighter is also a sturdy fighter, and that lower center of gravity lends itself to not only his balance, but his power.
These guys that stand in at about 6'4" to 6'6", 6'8", they're used to dealing with guys that are that same size, so a smaller fighter makes for a smaller target.
And a faster one. If you've seen Richard in action, he's fast on his feet with fast hands. He's explosive.
I think he's going to get the job done. I think he's going to get Guido Vianello out of there. And if he does, I'd be thoroughly impressed.
He's going to have to go through the gears. He's going to have to work for it. But I think he'll be the last man standing. I like Richard Torrez to win by way of knockout.
Now let's see if he can deliver.
Elsewhere in the heavyweight division, Daniel Dubois is ready to unleash hell in Alexander Usyk rematch. Since their initial meeting, Dubois has been active in the ring. He had an impressive run of form following the loss to Usyk, stopping Jarrell Miller and Filip Pergovic before facing Anthony Joshua, stopping him at Wembley. This win has bolstered Dubois' confidence and positioned him as a formidable contender in the heavyweight division.
Contender, he's IBF champion.
Dubois emphasized the significance of a rematch, stating the Usyk fight would be like the AJ fight, but way bigger, the biggest fight in the world. That's the fight that really excites me, and there's revenge there as well. The Usyk fight for Undisputed would create history. That would be a massive historic event, just like the AJ fight, the build-up at Leicester Square. It would be amazing to be part of that sort of fight.
As negotiations continue, the boxing world eagerly awaits confirmation of this potential rematch. A second bout between Dubois and Usyk promises not only to settle a lingering question from their first encounter, but to also potentially reshape the landscape of the heavyweight division.
There's just one problem. Daniel Dubois has a mandatory challenger in the queue in the form of Derek Chisora, and Derek Chisora wants his shot. He wants his opportunity. He says that one way or another, his next fight will be his last fight, but to mark that occasion, he wants to fight Daniel.
Interesting tidbits in association with that potential matchup is that they've both been trained by Don Charles. Derek Chisora isn't with Don now,
but he used to be, and currently, Daniel is being trained by Don.
For yourself, from a training point of view, training Dubois, a fight against Derek Chisora?
Listen, I don't know what kind of luck I've got luck. I feel blessed in life, but the kind of luck I've got, what are the chances of that? Yeah, and it's not something obviously that I want, because I'm quite an emotional guy. I'm a sensitive guy. It's not something I would want to materialize, but I'm happy for Derek, obviously, because it's gonna be his 50th, and according to him, his last fight. Yeah. Had it not been that it's against someone that I'm currently training, I'll be like, I'm happy for Derek, of course, to be going out, like they say, on a bang. What a way to exit, and what a way to cap his very colorful and successful career. But this is where the emotion comes into it. Yeah, it's not really something I would want to see.
So you can see that Don isn't crazy about the idea that Derek might end up fighting Daniel. I didn't expect him to be, but perhaps it's fate. Perhaps it's kismet that here in the twilight of Derek Chisora's career, on the eve of what will be his 50th and final fight, this opportunity presents itself. And it's funny because Derek didn't even want his last fight to be an IBF final eliminator. He didn't want that, but that's what led him here to this opportunity.
All things even, Derek has had a long, successful boxing career. Successful in the sense that in spite of having losses in the double digits, this guy's one of the highest paid heavyweights in the world. Oh, yes.
You know that there are world champions that don't make per fight what Derek makes per fight, and the missing puzzle piece, that in spite of being a remnant of the Klitschko era, and having been around as long as he's been around, he's never been a world champion. He never won a world title. So maybe it's fate.
That here, at the crossroads, towards the end of Derek Chisora's career, this opportunity presents itself.
The stars just aligned for Derek Chisora to close out his career in a world title fight. The opportunity to become a world champion, at least in the past. Derek never cared about the accolades. Derek never cared about the belts. He only cared about the money, but he's made plenty of that.
What's missing is a world title. What's missing from his career is that he was never a world champion in the previous era or this one.
So when he says that he wants the Daniel Dubois fight, there's a good chance that he's being genuine, that he's being serious. The caveat, however, is that Derek is also a shrewd businessman. He always has been, and he could always wrangle this situation into some step-aside money, a step-aside fee that if what Daniel wants is revenge on Usyk, it's going to cost him. It's going to cost somebody something if you want Derek to step aside.
You want your revenge on Usyk. You want to fight for undisputed. What's it worth to you? Because you owe me a title shot.
If you think about Dubois versus Chisora as a fight, because Daniel is buzzing right now and he's hot right now, and Derek has always had a cult following, he's always been a cult favorite, that in and of itself could be big in the UK. You can sell that.
Now, I don't know if it would be as big as an Usyk rematch. I don't know if it would be bigger than that, but it could be big in its own right.
What about Derek's chances?
Derek's chances to win against today's Daniel Dubois? I mean, I don't know what kind of odds you can give him, but he's been around this long. Maybe he'll surprise us all.
There are very few fairy tale endings in the sport of boxing, but this could be one among them if Derek Chisora actually gets the fight and shocks the world. Wow.
Wow.